I'm saying George. I'm going to assume you said Iowa. Today we're going to be learning how to make scrambled eggs, and the recipe that I use for making really fluffy scrambled eggs. Now, we're only going to be using 3 main ingredients in case not everybody has access to like sour cream, things like that. We're going to be using eggs, butter, and what I like to use is a type of goat cheese, which is my personal preference. And importantly as well, make sure that you have some bowl that I'll be using for when I'm cracking open the eggs, as well as a stirring stick. I like to use a spatula or a wooden spoon, whatever. And then also have a knife for each. So the first step that I like to do when making scrambled eggs is I like to start out with the butter. And I like to go ahead and put butter as well as the eggs that I'll be using in the recipe into some pan that I will be cooking with already. So I'll be taking butter and I'll be putting butter already onto the pan. And I haven't put the heat on this yet. There's a reason behind that. But I'm going to go ahead and take some butter. I'm making quite a few eggs right now. But you take butter and you put it onto the pan like so. And after you have butter onto the pan, I'm going to move this off to the side. Now, just as a pro tip, whenever you're cooking anything, you want to take all of the ingredients that you will be immediately using. Like I have eggs already off to the side here. I have the goat cheese. I can get the eggs back open. I have goat cheese off to my side as well. I have the butter right off to my side. And I have everything within easy arm's reach. That way if I'm running to grab something, I don't have to walk away to a fridge. I don't have to leave the cooking area in order to get what it is that I need. Just as a pro tip. So now I'm going to go ahead and take eggs inside a handy dandy bowl. That way I'm not leaving to go throw away the shells. And I'm going to go ahead and crack the shells. And crack the eggs into the pan. Now, I'm going to be making probably about 6 or 7 of these eggs, and depending on how many eggs you're planning to cook, to effectively cook, you'll want to tailor how much butter you're using relative to the number of eggs that you have. So if you have, I'll say like maybe 2 or 3 eggs, you can change that to like maybe a tablespoon of butter and that will be fine. And so I'm going to go up to 8 eggs. Okay, so now I've put in 8 different, did I put in 8? Yeah. 8 eggs that I've put into the pan. I haven't turned on any of the heat yet. So now I will take a spoon and I will take on this stove burner here, and I'm going to turn it up to medium heat. And right now, I'm going to start to stir everything. Now the key to making scrambled eggs is that as soon as you turn the heat on, everything has to be constantly in motion. You're constantly stirring, you're doing something. You don't really want to let it sit. So what I like to do is I like to stir in the eggs gradually, and I like to, as I'm stirring it, pop the yolks, just kind of like a personal preference while I'm stirring them in. And so I'm going to be stirring and stirring, just to kind of mix everything up together, like so. Now, one of the keys to making really fluffy scrambled eggs in this recipe is we're going to be taking the scrambled eggs on and off the heat repeatedly, in like pretty periodically actually. And we see that this little blue container that I have here is full of goat cheese. And in about a minute, we're going to be adding the goat cheese to the solution, if you want to think of it like that. So what I'm going to do is I've had the eggs on the stove. It isn't really hot yet, which is okay. But I'm going to be taking them off the heat, just very briefly, and mixing everything up. Like so. And you can still see it's kind of yolky. It's not really solidified at all, which is okay. And now that the eggs are kind of, what's the word? They've kind of, it's more of like a consistent solution a little bit more. I'm going to move them back onto the heat. And now I'm going to take the cheese that I had before and throw in some goat cheese into this stuff. So now It helps if you open up the goat cheese beforehand. So you're gonna laugh at my pain while I do this, which is okay. So I'm stirring and stirring and stirring. And then I'm gonna throw in some goat cheese into here. And now, I'm gonna be massaging in the goat cheese into this. And now while the scrambled eggs are kind of heating up, the goat cheese will melt into the mixture of the eggs as well. So I'm just constantly stirring. I'm going to take the container for the goat cheese and move it off to the side. And the technique in making fluffy eggs that I found is I like to have space where I'm stirring in heat and space where I'm stirring with no heat. And so this has already been sitting in the heat for about 40-ish seconds. So I'm going to take it off the heat and continue to stir. I'm going to move the bowl of shells out of the way. Now I'm going to stir it in a little bit. I'm going to stir for maybe about 10 or 20 seconds or so. This is a very exact science, as you can see. And I'm going to continue to stir in the eggs, like so. They're off the heat. But because the pan itself was on the heat, it's still retaining some of it, but not cooking at the same rate. So I'm going to be stirring in all of the butter, stirring in all of the goat cheese, and letting everything, not congeal, but I'm bringing everything together. So it's been off the heat for a little bit of time. I'm put them back onto the heat. Now, eggs, as they're cooking, they obviously cook when they're on the heat. And the key to having the eggs be really fluffy is in the on-heat, off-heat process of taking them on and off. Because the heat is what's making things fluffen up, effectively. And when we have the goat cheese as well as the butter cooking in with the eggs, when, like, I have these little lumps of cheese and butter still kind of, like, sitting inside of the solution, like, still. So if I want to give that more time to, like, really sit into the eggs, I bring it off the heat to prevent the eggs from cooking more. And so I let the cheese and the butter and everything still be able to, like, melt into the eggs, but it's going to prevent the eggs from, like, solidifying more and making so everything can, like, melt in together. So keep stirring. Do different techniques. Toss the spoon behind your back into the thing. No, don't do that.